My best greetings to Asikkala and to Duusela conference. I think it is a great innovation and initiative for urban areas, towns and cities to work closer together for better future and better Europe. Urban areas are the places where people exchange ideas, where innovations are done, and where new emerging lifestyles are created. It is the hubs and power of education, research, new ways of mobility, new ways of building and constructing, and new ways of people traveling, working together and forming opinions. And I think that part of the true European spirit really lies on towns, cities, megacities, in urban areas. That's why it is so interesting and important that the different kind of urban areas in Europe work better and tighter together. And that is of course understanding the scale and difference of different kind of small townships, small, almost rural-like areas, bigger towns with historic perspectives, cities and megacities. But there's the common denominator. It is the question of working, living and being closely together. And this closeness, this amount of people also gives the possibility to solve circular economy, environmental and climate change challenges. 70% of the Europeans are living in urban areas. So if these urban areas decide to commit on combating climate change, making circular economy reality and making services and living better for their citizens, the change will happen. And so I'm so excited about the possibility of twinning of townships and the cooperation of urban areas to combat this challenge. Firstly, let me pick up the public procurement. Public procurement is about 20% of our spending GDP in all over the Europe. If we would guide all those resources on favoring climate neutral goods or climate positive goods, recycled materials, energy efficiency, goods as services, and then of course circular economy innovations that would boost the markets and give the floor for new innovations and solutions greatly. Let's just pick up an example of food. If you favor locally produced, vegetarian based with local produced fish and meat, if you should choose to have them preferably organic, compared with broiler that you have exported from Brazil that is feeded with GMO soya, where you have cut it down rainforests to cultivate it. It's a totally different thing. Well, then the second is transportation. Think if we would make all the transportation in our urban areas clean and zero emission by 2030. That would mean, of course, people like me having the old-fashioned cars, that we would create that kind of a parking facilities on the outskirts of the urban areas and cities, and a good free public transportation that would commute us all to the three different kind of services and city centers. Think of the buses and the logistic transportation to start with. Think of the true mobility, how the cities and urban areas can actually serve as this kind of an innovation platform for self-driving cars, electric cars, or mobility as a service transportation facilities for people living in the remote areas and not having the possibility to drive the car for themselves or having the cars themselves, or maybe having not so good public transportation at this point. Think of mobile e-health, where actually you could keep big part of the health services and hospital services at people's homes via distant monitoring, medication and other services brought at home. And think buildings and constructions, because buildings and constructions are about 40% of CO2 emissions. They are about 50% of the resources we are using in Europe. If we could change the repair and on the forefront repair, because 80% of the buildings that are going to exist in 2050 are built already, so it is a big part of the solution is the renovation challenge, how we renovate the existing buildings. And then of course how you build the new ones, so that the structures are modular, that you do not produce construction waste, but you reuse the majority of it on site, and so that the buildings are adjustable, they have a very good air quality, they breathe as constructions, you do not use hazardous or harmful chemicals in there, and think of increasing the wood as construction material and them being zero emission, zero energy consumption buildings via energy that is produced from renewable sources on the site, for example, solar energy in the roof tops. So, by choosing the environmentally friendly transportation that is a social just, to build construction and buildings on mobility and on circular basis, to buy sustainable food, and to service people always at home when possible. We actually could pave the way for climate and environmental friendly Europe that creates new innovation and possibilities for our future. And about the money. Yes, the money exists there, because the Sustainable Finance Initiative actually guides the pension funds and investments in the future in environmentally sustainable direction. 30 trillion of our funds, that is millions of millions, is invested in coal-based or environmentally unsustainable stranded assets. And if you could move that amount of the assets from unsustainable to sustainable path, you would have the resources. So we know what to do. We know that the world is better with these solutions that we already have, and we have the money for it. So let's make urban areas and towns the motor of the change to create a better lives for the future generations and the existing people living in urban areas. All the best discussions on your interesting seminar, and let me hear about your outcomes and ideas.